Hello and welcome to Up Dog Sports Talk. I am your host tonight, Justin McGovern, and we are going to be talking Big Ten football. And who better to talk about the Big Ten, the conference with the last two national titles, than the guys who talk about the Big Ten the most? Inside the Pylon, Clinton and Ryan are both here. Guys, introduce yourselves.
Well, I am Clinton, over part of the half of the duo of Inside the Pylon. We started the podcast, Ryan? We're a year and a half in now.
Something like that.
Due to my love of forever living in Big Ten country. And I guess technically, Ryan, you forever lived in Big Ten country now that we've expanded to the West Coast.
Some are saying Las Vegas, Big Ten country.
We'll be moving the Big Ten championship there probably in the next 5 years, I'm sure. But we've had a lot of fun with it so far. Wonderful platforms like what you guys run, interacting with us helps us grow the show, and we really appreciate that. And we love everyone else we've interacted with. We're currently working on our fall previews, so we've had a lot of fun with that, and I've been looking forward to talking this show all day, so I'm ready to get going.
I
Awesome.
am Ryan. I am the smarter and better looking half of the podcast, but the less enthusiastic.
So you can have smarter, maybe better looking, but you won't get stronger.
No, I'm definitely not. I'm still working on my weak back syndrome. That's the work in progress. I don't know that I have anything to add, ? It's been fun. I enjoy this. It's fun to riff for 3 hours a week on nonsense, which is what our show devolves into half the time. So looking forward to getting out of, as much as I like doing our previews, and if you guys are listening to this and have not checked it out, you should. It's a lot of good info. It's a good way to kind of learn about some of these other teams that you might not be as invested in. Just to know, if you're a Big Ten fan, know your opponent for the upcoming season, learn a little bit about them. But as much as I like doing it and we learn a lot from them, I like our regularly scheduled programming where we just nonsensically talk for 90 minutes half the time.
I love it. Yeah, and obviously you guys, I know you're diving into MAC previews later this week as well. So, covering all the Midwest, and that's kind of similar to what we're about here. We like to cover everyone in college football and the NFL. Tonight is a college football show. We are talking about the Big Ten tonight, but this is part of a preview series where we are diving into all 10 conferences in college football. Big 12 and SEC has already gone out. We have tonight's show with the Big Ten, and then look out because American Athletic Conference is coming. Oh, sorry. The American is coming after that. Can't disrespect the bald eagle mascot. Did not think I was going to mention that in tonight's show, but let's go ahead and kick this thing off before we talk about any more conference mascots, shall we? So we start here with our championship contenders. You can see Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon. Any surprises to either of you guys in this tier?
Go ahead, Ryan. Start, Clint? Okay, I'll start. Surprises, no. I think as far as, like, if you break down the Big Ten last year, right, I mean, that was pretty much the championship tier. I mean, throw Indiana in there as a playoff team as well. But as far as staying power, I think atop of the conference until Indiana proves it. I don't know that they can necessarily go quite into that yet. Sorry, Justin, we see that there. But, I mean, we're talking about programs that have had a period of sustained success, right? So I think that until proven otherwise, you kind of have to put these teams in there. And I mean, say what you want about the coaches poll, but coaches poll comes out today, and I think all these teams are in the top 7, which is firmly in the playoff hosting first round game or getting a first round bye territory. So I would say that I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about this as we get in a little bit, but I mean, if we're talking about like our top 3 personally, when we did our tier team, that's pretty much covers it as well. I mean, don't mention my Illinois take, Clinton.
No surprise here for me. These are all the top 3 national teams that you see everywhere. It's the teams I'm most confident in. Ryan, back in, I don't know, when we started our spring previews, was pretty confident Penn State being the number 1 team, maybe not in the Big Ten, but maybe coming in number 1 ranked in the country for this year. If you look what they've done, they're pulling from the Ohio State and Michigan model from the past 2 years. They have brought back their talent. They are selling out for what they need to do. Wide receiver still a massive question mark for this team. It ended their season essentially last year. Do they have the talent now to replace that? And then Ohio State and Oregon, Ohio State especially, losing so much talent of not youth, but old from their last roster. Now they have to reload at so many spots, but both those teams are just littered with top 5 talent everywhere. So when you're reloading with high 4 stars and 5 stars, it's a lot easier to stay at the top of the league. My general thought was, I was looking at this, maybe the most questionable of those three is probably Oregon, I would say. Maybe that's some Ohio State homer bias in me, but I feel like Penn State is pretty stable there and Ohio State's there. And if there was a team who maybe falls short of that championship contender aspects, I would probably say Oregon at this time. Sorry, Dale, if you tune into this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was actually going to lead in my next question. So that was a good take there. Your team that could be a potential bust is Oregon. Ryan, do you have one on your side that is either Oregon or maybe someone different?
Yeah, we when we did our tiers in the spring, I actually had Oregon below Illinois, and I kind of, the more that I read about Illinois, I think I'm starting to regret that. And I think that, I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute, but when I look at these, it's like, so Penn State to me of these three teams has the highest floor because, I mean, James Franklin, say what you want about Big Game James and that moniker, like they don't lose to teams that they should not lose to. So if we're operating under the assumption that both Oregon and Ohio State are going to be good this year and Penn State loses those games, they're still going to be 10-2 and probably still be in the playoff. So I think that's the floor for them, barring injury, right? Like Drew Aller gets hurt game one, then all bets are off. But I think with Ohio State, I know there's a lot of questions about the quarterback position and maybe a little bit about the running back position and how do you replace these guys on defense. But if you look at this program since the 21st century started, aside from the Luke Fickell interim year when 5 of their best 10 players were suspended and they went 7-6, like this team is consistently in like the 9-10 win range regardless. And I mean, even if you look at since Ryan Day took over, I mean, you go from Dwayne Haskins at quarterback. What do you have, like 55 touchdowns, 54 touchdowns his last season at Ohio State? And you go to Justin Fields, and there were still some questions about him. Did he leave Georgia because he stinks, or did he leave Georgia because Kirby Smart doesn't know how to do the quarterback position? And, oh, well, they're good with him. And then he leaves. And, all right, well, what is C.J. Stroud going to be? Oh, just another All-American and a first-round pick, and now really good NFL player. And then even when they had Kyle McCord and Ohio State fans incessantly were whining about him, they still had a pretty damn good season that year. And then, you know, the big question on the team last year was Will Howard at quarterback. What can he be? And he just won a national title. So I know, like, we give Lincoln Riley always gets that credit of, like, you know, the quarterback whisperer, and USC is always, or Lincoln Riley offense is always going to have a quarterback until he doesn't. And then they didn't really last year. And oops, that goes out the window. So I think Ryan Day's in that category of he deserves the benefit of the doubt with the quarterback position. As far as Oregon goes, I think we're not making enough of what they lost offensively. You know, as limited as Dylan Gabriel might have been downfield and from an NFL perspective, which kind of funny that he ends up going in the 3rd round and might be the Browns starting quarterback now. But, you know, they lose Dylan Gabriel. They lose their top running back. And I know they brought in a good guy in Mackay Hughes from the Tulane Green Wave. I don't know why I had to stutter through that. But they lose their top 4 pass catchers as well, including Evan Stewart to injury. And I don't remember what podcast I was listening to, but they were talking about the Oregon receivers. And the point was, well, they didn't get anyone from the portal, so they must feel good about what they have. And I'm like, okay, that's a fair point. But that was also before Evan Stewart got hurt. So now you're going from, we have Evan Stewart as our top guy to we feel good about what we have, you know, below him at that 2-3 level replacing him. Well, now all of a sudden you need guys who you were hoping to step up to be a complementary piece. Someone has to step up to be a go-to guy. And I really like Kenyon Sadiq as a tight end, but as someone who, for the last, I swear to God, like 10 years of watching Notre Dame football, watching an offense that's based off of a running game and a really good tight end, I know the limitations that has. So I wonder what that's going to look like. And I mean, they have quarterback questions too. You know, we've seen Dante Moore as a starting quarterback at UCLA, and it didn't go particularly great. And I don't know that that's necessarily entirely his fault, but he's had a year to learn, and he's a talented guy for sure, but I think there's enough questions around this offense that I think, you know, maybe we're all being a little collectively too high on Oregon. And I could see them, again, I don't know that they're going to fall off a cliff, and I still think they'll be in the playoff chase. But if they went 9-3 this year, I would not be shocked.
Honestly, I said Oregon, but in general, I think all three it could be a disappointment. It depends on what their fan base is looking for. And we've talked with our guy Matt Flip with Penn State. We've talked with Penn State fans on social media. Is this a natty or bust season? And if your season is riding on a national title in the way that Michigan and Ohio State's did, and you don't win it, that could be deemed a disappointment. God forbid Penn State somehow chokes this, loses Ohio State, Oregon, and to Indiana, and they go 9-3 and miss the playoffs. I don't know if James Franklin will be able to walk back to his car without mass security. And then Ohio State, I mean, Ryan said it, they seem pretty foolproof when it comes to winning. They're 10 or wins or better every regular season. They just don't have losing seasons. It doesn't happen. But God forbid, it's a challenging schedule with you go 9-3 and you miss the playoffs, falling to Natty. You weren't Michigan record, but you're kind of in the same scenario as you didn't make it after you won a national championship. And then we just no need to rehash Oregon, but you win a Big Ten title first year, you get blown out in the Rose Bowl, and then you just come back with fans expecting a big rebound, and then you miss the playoff, and that feels like an utter disappointment there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to keep punching on Oregon here, but the other challenge is I also look at the schedule, and there's some scary games on here. You have the whiteout at Penn State.
Oh, yeah.
At this current point, I have that one chalked as a loss. And you get towards the end of the season, when last year you kind of saw Oregon kind of start to drop off a little bit, start to get a little bit beat up. You go to Kinnick in November. Mm-hmm. You travel to Washington. Mm-hmm. Washington's riding like a 20-something game win streak at home. Those are very tough games. I could easily see where that puts you in a 9-3 record, which may not put you in the college football playoff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the fascinating thing about this year in the Big Ten, and I think, Clinton, I think you're in agreement with me. I think this actually might have been an original you take. I think, whereas last year, right, we had, it felt like we had like 3 tiers to the Big Ten last year. It was like your playoff teams, and maybe you could throw Illinois in there since they went 9-3, but you have your top 5 who kind of seemed head and shoulders above everyone else. And then you had your bottom 3 with Northwestern, Purdue, and who am I blanking on here? Maryland. But it felt like everyone like else in that middle was just kind of like there, where they're fine. They're good enough that if you're playing bad that they can get you, but they're not really scary in their own right. I think this year, at least the top 3, maybe not as much Indiana or Illinois. I think Illinois takes a little bit of a step forward. And I think Indiana, too, can be better than they were last year, even though the record might not say it. But I think at least those top 3, all of them come back to the pack maybe a little bit, maybe aside from Penn State. I don't know yet. We'll see. But I think like that next, like that 5, 6 to 12 range, I think all those teams are going to be a lot better. So that you look at these schedules, and I mean, in using Oregon's November as an example, like if Iowa takes a little bit of a step forward on offense, that's not going to be an easy game for Oregon. I think if Drake Lindsey's a good quarterback for Minnesota, that's not going to be an easy game for them either. If USC can get their stuff together and stop blowing fourth quarter leads, that's not going to be an easy game either. And I mean, you touched on the at Washington. I mean, they were a completely different team on the road versus at home last year. So where you look at these schools and like from a like surface level helmet standpoint, maybe you look and you're like, that's not super scary, but you line them up back to back to back to back to end the season when they already have to play Penn State, when they already have to play Indiana, maybe they already have a loss or 2, and you got to be perfect in November to keep your playoff hopes alive. That's not an easy task to deal with that kind of external pressure either.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting. Like, none of them are really truly ironclad this year. I think we even covered the Penn State scenario, but you even look at Ohio State. Like, you have the opener against Texas. Mm-hmm. That is fair enough to consider a toss-up game. Mm-hmm. They also have to travel to Washington. Mm-hmm. Again, riding that win streak. Washington's a tough place to play. And then, of course, we have the elephant in the room. You have the season finale where Ohio State is not... Can you imagine... Like, I don't even know what would happen to Columbus if they have 2 losses entering that game and history repeats itself from the last several years. That would be a mess.
I don't know if I want to do... Ryan and I switched to the latter half of season last year doing Saturday night recap shows instead of Sunday. I think we'd have to move that one to Sunday. I need about 24 hours. I needed almost 24 hours to cool off from last year's. That one would be really bad. Sitting 9-2 and then you go 9-3. The amount of, I have my personal Twitter and our Inside the Pylon Twitter. I do most of the interactions there. And I do my best to be as unbiased as you should be as a podcast host. But damn, reading on there, all the stuff of the Michigan-Ohio State banter, and I just sit and think of that as like, if they eliminated Ohio State from the playoffs the year after they won the national championship, and it was 5 straight. Technically, Ohio State's last one was 2019 because there wasn't a game in 2020. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to turn off Twitter for like 6 months. I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could stay neutral on that one, man. That'd be tough for me.
Oh man, yeah, that would be rough, especially because I know for me, like, while I'm a Bowling Green fan first, but I still root for Ohio State, and because I growing up rooting for them, and our intern Tony is a Michigan fan, so internal banter on this podcast would be unreal.
That's hilarious.
Clinton, you do realize that since I started working for the University of Michigan, they have not lost to Ohio State.
That's all right. Notre Dame hasn't beaten Ohio State since you've been there, since we've known each other. So that's an added plus for me.
Fair enough. Touche.
Oh, that's great. So we'll go ahead and jump here to the next tier. These are teams that I kind of looked at as ones who could crash the college football playoff: Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Nebraska, and Iowa. Who in this tier kind of catches you as surprising, like you're a little bit surprised to find them?
So I'll start this one. I'm not on board with Michigan. And here we go. The Ohio State guys talking about Michigan. My problem is they lost so much talent on a team that needed all that talent to get every ounce, squeeze all the juice out of it they could. Graham, Grant, Stewart, Johnson, they're all gone. Their best weapon on offense was Colston Loveland. He's now on the Bears. Underwood is talented, but there's only so much you can rely on a freshman quarterback to do for you when Norman, Oklahoma, I believe, is staring down the gun, week 2? And then you've got a trip to Nebraska without your coach, whatever holds up with that or doesn't hold up. Let's say it holds up. You don't have Sharon Moore to take you into Nebraska, which another team in this tier that Ryan and I have been high on for 2 years could very well crash the playoff. That's a tough matchup. And then what looms with Ohio State at the end of the year? Their wide receiver room is still cheeks. It needs to be proven otherwise until I believe in it. Your best receiver, I hear Michigan people talking about, is a guy you brought in from Indiana who left the team after 3 games last year because he wasn't playing. So what do you expect from him? Like, you have size. You have a nice young 5-star or high 4-star that's coming in this year. Okay, so you're going to bank on a freshman quarterback and a freshman receiver? I certainly don't think Michigan's going to be bad by any means. I just think so many people, and I see these top projections, some people even have them, I think J.D. Pickell was one. It's got them in the playoff as like a 6 seed. I'm like, that's not going to happen, man. Like, they're not deep enough to do it. Could they do it? Yes. But to me, if I were ranking them, I'd put them more down in maybe the sleeper and the chaos team where they cause a little more trouble. They stir something up. You mentioned the Ohio State game. Like, if another season is riding 7-4 for them heading into that game, they beat Ohio State, like, that party's on, man. They don't care if they lose all those games because they just ruined Ohio State's season, which they thought they did last year, and Ohio State somehow miraculously pulled out in the national championship. But I don't know. Michigan kind of surprises me in that tier. Ryan, anybody for you?
I will say in defense of Michigan, because I don't necessarily disagree with anything that Clinton said from like a roster construction standpoint. Their schedule is not hard at all this year. And again, I get it depends on what you think of a couple of these teams and if anyone takes a step forward. But like, everyone's touting this Oklahoma game as a huge early season game. And it seems like we've all, maybe not, I shouldn't say we all, I shouldn't group all of you into this too, but it seems like everyone's just like buying this John Mateer hype with Oklahoma without considering that he played a Mountain West schedule last year and now he's playing an SEC schedule. So I don't know that this hype is necessarily warranted. That's a big jump in competition. Playing what should still be a good Michigan defense. I get it's at home, but in week 2, I don't know. They don't think that that's necessarily a guaranteed loss for Michigan. And if you win that game, then you got Central Michigan. Who cares? You're not losing that game. And then you beat Nebraska. I mean, you are smooth sailing into Ohio State at the end of the season, and that is not even the toughest game on their schedule, as they have demonstrated over the last 5 years.
Smooth sailing, though, but you have Washington coming to you.
Okay, but again,
and Washington is your playoff dark horse there.
Yes, but also Clinton, and we'll talk about Washington, but you talk about what Michigan did last year. Washington was utterly atrocious on the road last year. They were 0-7 away from Husky Stadium. They did not win a game. They were a completely different team. They were putrid on the road last year. Again, maybe they take a step forward this year and get that game figured out. But what if it is a big noon start and they're playing that game at 9 a.m. local time? That's a 5 o'clock game that we don't like to see.
Yeah.
I mean, again, at USC could be tough if USC takes a step forward, but that's at a brutal point in USC's schedule too, where I think it's sandwiched between. I think they might have a bye before that, but it's around there. They have Illinois and then Notre Dame right after, so potentially a look ahead spot for USC at that one. Maybe Michigan State takes a step forward this year. But heading into that Ohio State game, and I mean, I guess it depends on what you think about Michigan State, but you could make an argument that Michigan's 4 games heading into Ohio State are against the 4 worst teams in the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of runway there. And I mean, even if you are higher on Michigan State, their 3 games before Ohio State are certainly against the 3 worst teams in the Big Ten in Purdue, Maryland, and Northwestern. So
tune-up games.
Yes, they have a wide breadth of going into that game. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm high on Michigan because, again, I agree with everything that Clinton said about the roster construction. But I think from a schedule standpoint, I mean, if they're 10-1 going into Ohio State to end the year, I would not be shocked. And that doesn't necessarily mean I think they're good. It's just they're not playing that tough of a schedule comparatively to the rest of the Big Ten. My surprise in this year was Nebraska, and kind of similar to what you said, Clinton, with Michigan. They were closer to kind of my chaos tier because I just don't feel like buying Nebraska until I see it from them. It's too often this is the year. This is the year. This is
the rule in year 3, though.
They'll do it this time, yes. And as some have pointed out, in year 3 in Carolina, he got fired. So there's a little bit of a
not relative to the NFL. Just talking college football.
I just it's 2 straight years that they started off well and nearly missed a bowl game because they fell apart down the stretch. I don't know, man. Their schedule's not super difficult, same as Michigan's, but if the offense does not take a step forward this year, you're going to end up in a couple of dogfights against the likes of Michigan, probably Michigan State if they take a step forward, definitely at Minnesota, definitely USC, maybe UCLA if Nico can elevate that program. And then you end at Penn State and against Iowa, and that's a tough way to end the season. So they're more of a spunky. Would I be shocked if they took a step forward and entered that playoff discussion the last couple of weeks of the season? I would not be at all, but that's another one of those. I really need to see it before I start believing it.
Well, just to build on that, Ryan, real quick, you have Raiolas paired with Holgerson for a full off season now. He had the end of the season last year, very nice pairing. But again, they're relying on the portal for wide receiver and offensive line, in addition to promoting a new defensive coordinator. If 1 or 2 of those things don't hit, with 6 challenging games on their schedule, they may not find themselves crashing anything except for the Cheez-It Bowl. So
that's true.
That might be the only thing where they're at. That was the next team I had marked under there, Ryan. So I had Michigan 1, maybe the tier below, and then I was a bit questionable with Nebraska there as well.
Yeah, and kind of going on both of those, I tend to fall in Ryan's camp of Michigan. The reason why I looked at them in this tier was because I looked at their schedule. They do have a good defense. I expect the defense to still be playing at a high level, even with those guys they lost to the NFL. So you look at that schedule, and I could see the exact scenario that Ryan pointed out, where they could be 10-1. Because you look at the Oklahoma game, like you said, with Mateer, we need to see what he does. We also need to see if their offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, isn't just going to pass the ball the whole time. When I could see a scenario where Oklahoma seemingly has control of most of the game, but because they keep trying to throw the ball down the stretch, they lose control of the fourth quarter. Michigan comes out there with a win they had no business winning.
Absolutely.
That kind of scenario there. And again, like we said, Washington on the road, USC, we'll get to them in the moment, but I'll say the Oklahoma one was kind of a similar hit with USC. And you could just see Michigan manage to stumbling their way into that 6th seed. Maybe they weren't good enough to have it, but here they are. They made it. And you never know what could happen there. And I do agree, though. Like, I put Nebraska here just because of their potential. There's potential, but are we going to see it happen? And that's why that game against Michigan is so critical. I think winning that game is where, if Nebraska were to win that game, that's where we finally see them make that step, finally beat someone from towards the top of the conference. it felt like they were close last year. They came close against Ohio State with a goal line stop at the end of the game. That could have been their moment there, and maybe they don't backslide at the end of the year if that. I can't remember when that was late in the year, but I think they went into the backslide after that game, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. Well, they got demolished by Indiana the week before.
I was going to say, I think that was the week after Indiana.
So then everybody in Columbus, I was at that game in person, everybody in Columbus expected the same thing. And Ohio State came out as flat as a board and looked like they had no interest in playing that game. Again, rotating a new left tackle first time after the bye. And that's a side tangent here. Ohio State historically after the bye, man, even with Urban Meyer, they come out flat. You think teams come out re-energized. Watch Ohio State after a bye week. They flat tire. It's just, there's no energy, man. It was rough. It was brutal.
Well, one more point on Michigan, Nebraska. I think the good thing about Michigan schedules, I mean, we'll have a pretty good idea by the end of September of what they are going to be, if they are going to be a serious player or not, because if they get by Oklahoma, I think both of those, I mean, if Nebraska's not 3-0 heading into that Michigan game, then we're just writing Nebraska off for the season because their start to the season is atrocious. But if both of those teams are 3-0 going into that game, I get that I think there's a Big Ten game in week 2 or something like that. So it's not, week 4 is not the official start to Big Ten conference season, but for your unofficial start to Big Ten conference season, you get 3-0 Michigan against 3-0 Nebraska. The winner of that game is feeling pretty good about themselves with the schedule that they have. It could be a very fascinating weekend. It will not be a big noon game. It's already set for 3:30, by the way.
Hey, there we go. All right.
Finally, something. Well, Justin, I get a lot with Ryan, obviously. We do the show together. We have the 3 eyes that remain on this. And I'm sure we're going to get Indiana, Illinois in a second. What are your thoughts on Iowa? I know Ryan and I's thoughts. So what are your personal thoughts on Iowa this year? And, you know, Ryan and I bit pretty hard last year. We had them as our sleeper.
That was foolish.
For the playoff, and that crashed and burned. Although Caleb Johnson was an absolute god. But other than that, what are your thoughts on Iowa?
You guys were a year ahead. This is the year, guys. I am all in on the Iowa Hawkeyes going 10-2 this year. And part of it is because, first of all, they have a quarterback. Mm-hmm. As part of our show, we watch FCS football as well. We dive deep into that. I know I've watched a lot of Mark Gronowski play football, and that guy is a good quarterback. The best quarterback they've had at the position, I think, at least since Ricky Stanzi, maybe. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously that's even not a hard tier to cross. So you could even get up to Drew Tate levels here. I'm a huge believer in him. I believe in their running back. I think it was Morton or Moulton. I think it's Moulton.
Yeah, Kamari Moulton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he's going to step up and play well. They had some promising signs from the receivers. I know they're replacing guys in defense, but let's face it, this is a Phil Parker defense. They're going to reload. And then finally, what really tops it for me is you look at Iowa's schedule this year, and it is extremely favorable. You have 3 of your 4 toughest games at home, with Oregon at home, you have Penn State at home, and then you have Indiana at home. The toughest road game is at Iowa State in Ames, where you haven't lost since 2011. That is a great setup for Iowa to go 10-2. I mean, that's even, maybe they upset Oregon and lose a random game out there, like maybe they drop one to, I don't want to say Iowa or to Minnesota, because that would upset Iowa fans, but maybe you drop one somewhere along the line there, maybe even to USC just because of the West Coast trip. You're still looking at 10-2, and you're very much in that at-large race for the college football playoff. So what are your thoughts on Iowa?
Well, do you know how many times have we seen the last 10 years highly ranked teams go into Kinnick Stadium and just die against an Iowa team that had no business beating them?
I saw an Ohio State team do that.
It's crazy. It is crazy. And it's just this feels like the type of year for it to happen with, I get Penn State's maybe a little bit of a click above given what we just talked about with them, but if they get either Indiana or Oregon or both, I mean, I personally would not be shocked. And I mean, realistically, if we're talking about this tier, and maybe that segues into the who do we see rising up question, can we just refer to this as the quarterback tier? Because I think whichever quarterback of these, 6 teams you had in here is the best this year, that's probably your 4th playoff team from the Big Ten, or 3rd, depending on, again, what you think of the first tier.
Yeah, 100%. So let's kind of, sorry, Clint, I'll let you take it.
I was just going to say, hold on, I think this thing is, I pulled up a site with too many ads. I want to check my stuff here real quick. Last year in points per game, they went to 72nd in the country. Or maybe it was yards per game. Regardless, they had a huge jump. They were like 131st in the country 2 years ago. Too many people, my point is here, are giving flack still to Iowa's offense. But they can't do this and they can't do that. You clearly aren't reading the stats because they almost cut or improved by half. You're foolish to think with Mark Gronowski coming in here, again, that we just said is the best quarterback they've had in 10 plus years, that they're not going to continue to get better. This isn't Brian Ferentz running the offense anymore. Like, they have an ability. You lose Caleb Johnson, it's tough. But you actually have a viable quarterback who not only can pass, but he can run. Iowa, I think, is absolutely the team there that you could absolutely say could be the one that jumps up in there.
And don't forget, like, they have the inventor of the slow mesh offense now as like an analyst on their staff. I don't know if we're going to see the slow mesh at Iowa, but needless to say, that would be awesome. I would love if they just ran slow mesh every single play. But the point is, like, they're going to be a little bit more creative now. You're not going to see them just 3 yards in the cloud of dust up the middle every time. They're going to play offense. So let's go to Illinois or Indiana. Your pick.
Oh,
take Indiana. And Ryan, if I can jump in here, Ryan rode high, and I applaud him for Illinois, bringing back 16 returning starters.
Yeah.
And that's a ton, right? And that's a lot of experience. Luke Altmaier being one. A lot of people, Indiana fans, we love you, but I put out a Big Ten quarterback ranking list, and Fernando Mendoza was not ahead of Luke Altmaier, and they blew up. They're like, how can that not be? I'm like, Luke Altmaier has been in the Big Ten for 3 years. Fernando Mendoza has no experience in the Big Ten. I expect him to succeed with Cignetti. You took a guy in Curtis Rourke, go Bobcats, put him on the Indiana Hoosiers, and he had a fantastic season with no ACL in his knee.
And one
now Yes, and you expect Mendoza's going to be fully healthy. He should succeed. But when I look at the difference between Indiana and Illinois, and what I actually think, I'm going to give an early snippet here, probably who I'm going to pick in that game, depending on the line. Indiana has pieces at every position. They've reloaded the offensive line where they needed to. They have a quarterback that's proven in Mendoza. You have Elijah Surratt, plus he's Waffle House, man. He's always open. He's got other receivers there. You just took Roman Hemby from Maryland. You improved your defensive line depth. You still brought back Kamara on the defensive line. He kind of floats edge and tackle there based on his size. You have Aiden Fisher, who's a prospective all-Big Ten linebacker, and D'Angelo Pons in the defensive back group. That is every position group that has now been named where they have someone. Can we do that for Illinois? Can we name a wide receiver that we expect to come off the charts right away for Illinois? Can you name the defensive back that does that? A defensive lineman? They had virtually no pass rush last year. Watch the Penn State game.
Gabe Jacques is pretty good.
Gabe Jacques, yes. But they had virtually no pass rush last year. They couldn't make an impact in the Penn State game. The score was much closer than what that game truly was last year. That game was also, I believe, on at the same time that Alabama-Georgia was. And if I had them both up, but my God, you couldn't take your eyes off the Georgia comeback to try to take that game from them. But I don't know. I'm leaning
field goals in that game.
Oh my God, yeah.
Every time I looked at that one in the quad box. I just saw another missed field goal.
Absolutely. Ryan, your take? Like, cool. I heard you say you're backing off Illinois a little bit.
So can we riff about them for a minute? Because, like I said, I had them ahead of Oregon.
You had them number 3.
I had them number 3. And the more that I have read and listened to about them, I think that I'm now lumping everyone into this. This might be the royal we. I think we are collectively too high on Illinois. And I wonder if this is just like a 9-3 team that's getting a lot of preseason hype because they beat South Carolina in the bowl game.
They had numerous games last year, not including the one game they blew. They should have beaten Minnesota.
Well, so
Games
like
that they could have went the other way and they could have lost.
right. So they barely beat Kansas at the beginning of the season, and I get Kansas finished strong, but that team was bad the first half of the season. They did not look particularly great against Central Michigan. They should have lost in Nebraska. Nebraska literally gave them that football game. I mean, you just mentioned the Penn State game. It was close on the scoreboard. At no point during that game did you feel like Illinois was any threat to win. They gave up 49 points to Purdue. Purdue played 5 playoff teams last year and scored 16 points in those 5 games. And they scored 49 points against Illinois. That is atrocious. You know, they barely beat a Michigan team that couldn't throw a forward pass. They were not competitive against Oregon. And they finished the season against, again, 3 of the worst teams in the Big Ten in Michigan State, Rutgers, and Northwestern, and were not particularly dominant in any of those games. And then they beat a South Carolina team that half the college football world thought should have been in the playoff, and all of a sudden that means you're supposed to be a preseason top 10 team next year. So I wonder if kind of like, and I get that, like, well, you can have this conversation too about Penn State. It's like, well, they bring a bunch of people back and they weren't particularly great last year, so why are they going to be great this year? Well, natural progression's a thing, and you can get better. You're not the same team year over year, but with that much ball luck, I wonder if there's a bit of a regression to the mean, and this team just ends up going 9-3 again and finishes like 17th in the country and is just not really in the playoff discussion at all.
Which is a success for Illinois.
Well, no, for sure. And that's like, I literally wrote in my notes, I wonder if we are all collectively so high on Illinois that they end up going 9-3 again, and it feels like a wasted season when it shouldn't, because maybe we all miscalculated how much the D might improve or how much they'd miss the receivers they lost. Like, there's still questions on this team. Like, it's not even with all the returning starters they have, it is not a perfect team. There are enough questions on this team that could legitimately limit their ceiling for the season.
And if
they go 9-3, it's still a good year. It's still a good year.
Down September 20th. Which is a key game for both these teams. Illinois at Indiana. I think the key is they got to go to the Rock to play that game. That place is, I believe that game is already sold out from what I've read. They are ready to go. And Signetti, listen, he said Google me, we kicked top 25 teams' asses. That doesn't hold true, but he might get his chance against Illinois here. He might get this shot. And I don't know, the one thing to me that could swing that game is Illinois has a proclivity for forcing turnovers. And if they force Mendoza into some situations and then they start grinding it out with the run game because the receivers aren't quite ready to take a next step to win the game for them, you're working clock, you're taking the crowd out of the game. And now Indiana, they start to fizzle. Do they start to feel like the Notre Dame game last year where they just couldn't get what they needed to out of the O-line, D-line, and Illinois just chokes them out. And that is kind of my path at this point in time till we get rolling in the season a little more. A path to victory for Illinois is turnovers. You got to turn them over to get that win. Otherwise, I don't know, man. I might take Indiana double digits right now in that game.
I don't know if I go that far. But
10, not like 30. 10.
I mean, that's the same weekend as Nebraska, Michigan as well. That's a really important playoff swing game because, again, both Indiana and Illinois. I mean, Illinois does have to go to Duke. That could be a tricky game if Darian Mensah clicks for the Blue Devils. But in theory, both of those teams should be 3-0 heading into that game, and the winner of that game is going to be firmly in the driver's seat. I'll give the edge to IU right now. I'm backing off of Illinois a little bit. I need to pump the brakes. I got a little too excited. I'm freely willing to admit that.
It's one of those situations. What are your favorite situations of the preseason where team ends the season hot, gathers a lot of hype, and then they just don't quite end up being what the overinflated expectations end up being. And the other thing you got to look at with them is Vegas isn't buying it, by the way. Like, we don't talk about sports betting a whole ton, but Vegas is a good barometer on many things. Vegas is not buying the Illini at all. I know they tend to underestimate them a little bit, but this is not an offseason where anyone's underestimating them. And you still see Vegas going, nope, we don't think they're going to be any better than potentially 8-4. And you could see where that could happen. Like, there's tricky points in the schedule. You mentioned the Duke game. That's one that could, maybe they overlooked them. Maybe Mensah clicks Duke's offense. Duke's defense is real. They got dogs all over that defense. And all of a sudden you lose that one. You could see where this season could kind of spiral out of control. lose to Indiana a few weeks later, lose at home to Ohio State, lose on the road to Washington, and boom, there you are. You're 8-4. That's still a pretty solid season, but it feels like they didn't live up to these high expectations everyone gave them.
Yeah, you are correct right now. The Illinois win total it's juice, but it's over 7.5 right now. So
yeah, so they're basically looking at like 8-4.
Also, Clinton, there is an early line for that Indiana-Illinois game.
What?
Ooh.
3.5.
Minus
3.5. 2.5. Okay.
So basically, given the home field, it's basically a pick 'em.
I thought home field. Well, I guess that's close enough to 3. Home field is usually worth 3.
So basically a pick 'em.
Yeah,
which sounds fair. I think that's fair.
Justin's point is great. You got to go to Duke. We're overlooking that and getting so excited for a potential early Big Ten matchup of undefeateds of Indiana, Illinois, top teams that came out of nowhere last year. But you know what the thing is about coming out of nowhere? Everybody knows about you this year.
It's true.
You don't think Ohio State's not going to recognize when they walk into Champaign that Illinois could be a threat? 2007 ain't happening when Juice Williams was there that pulls the upset. Ohio State is going to be aware of what they're walking into. You don't think Penn State's not going to be aware of Indiana? They know what you are. You're going to get their best shot. They're not going to overlook you like they may in years past. And that's another thing that these two teams have to deal with is expectations now, because we've put so much on you, especially Indiana. 11-1 regular season. Didn't look like you quite had the horses to hang with Notre Dame. Well, you clearly didn't have the horses to hang with Notre Dame in the playoff.
Then again, most people didn't. So
no, you're right. Georgia didn't. And so you have expectations now. You got to deal with it. Signetti's used to it when he's at JMU and stops before that. But this is a whole different world when you're playing big boy ball than it is in the Sun.
Absolutely. And again, like the schedule we mentioned those tough games. All of them are on the road. Iowa and Kinnick, at Oregon, at Penn State. All of that is so. Like when I look at the schedule, like I can try to be optimistic about Indiana all I want, but 9-3 is what's screaming out to be, and that's going to be that's still a really good season for Indiana. Before last year, the running joke was like, are we ever going to see 9-win Indiana? They only have one 9-win season ever. Let's see it again. So that's still a great season, but I don't think that's going to get you in the college football playoff.
You're putting them in a stratosphere of 9-3, and then look at 9-3 Bama, 9-3 Ole Miss, 9-3 South Carolina couldn't get there. There's almost zero shot that committee's given Indiana the benefit of the doubt, especially if the 3 losses are to their premier teams th're trying to beat, and then they didn't get anything else.
Yeah, you have no juice then. You have no juice.
Again, you're building yourself, which is great. I think Signetti, he's a little bit older. This is a final resting place for him, essentially, as far as coaching. He's committed to you, and if you keep winning and building, you're not a basketball program anymore. You have football and basketball, which would be huge for the IU fans.
Absolutely. I guess that can get us to our next tier now. We can jump to the sleepers or chaos teams tier. So we have USC, we have Washington, and Minnesota. I'll just let you guys run with this. Who sticks out to you first here?
Oh, it's Washington. It's definitely Washington. That's my
100% agree.
We spent a good part of our spring programming when we had nothing else to do talking about who was going to be the Indiana team that comes out of nowhere and makes the playoff. And I think that the amount of love that Illinois was getting kind of disqualified from them from that conversation. So I've thrown Washington as my pick for that. Not saying that they will, but the talent's certainly in place. And one thing that I know I certainly didn't consider, I don't know how many people did not consider, but like looking at them last year, their roster was screwed last year. It was a no-win situation for Jed Fish. They had a late start in the coaching cycle because they went to the national title game. They played for a national title, and then Kalen DeBoer went to Alabama, in February? It was like late January, early February. So
yeah, Nick Saban retired pretty late.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So you're at a point where that opens the portal for your players to leave, on top of all the guys they were already losing to the NFL. But it's also already after the winter portal had closed, so you don't have an opportunity to replace those guys and get people in there for spring ball. So you're running spring ball while your head coach gets there, a month before spring ball starts? He's trying to put a roster together. He's trying to put a staff together. Then they got to hit the summer portal and try to figure out, all right, well, this is what we need. We're not good here. We're not good here. And then you got to get all those guys in summer, get them into conditioning, and then kind of feed them through a fire hose during fall camp to get them ready. And with the discipline issues that we saw with this team last year, they weren't among the most penalized teams in the country, but they were certainly bottom half. I think it was like 6 penalties and 50 some odd penalty yards per game, which, I mean, if you're a fine team, but you're giving up 50 yards a game in penalties, that's not a winning proposition. And I think
especially on the road.
Right, especially on the road when you are the westernmost outpost in your Midwest Conference. That's not an easy proposition at all. And I think so much of Washington's year last year was just trying to get their feet settled in the Big Ten with a new staff and with a new roster. And with what they have this year, I mean, I love Damon Williams at quarterback. I think he's a much better fit for the Jed Fish offense than Will Rogers was. That just was such a weird marriage. And I mean, I think they made the best out of it because the guy committed to run the DeBoer offense, and then DeBoer leaves, and he's like, by the way, I'm not taking you with me to Alabama. I'm taking Austin Mack, and I already have Jalen Milroe. So he's kind of sitting there like, well, shoot, now it's February, and I don't have a home, so I guess I'll just stick it out here. He was fine, but I think Damon Williams is like, he's more Noah Fafita than Will Rogers is, so that's going to give a certainly different component to this offense this year. You have what should be one of the best running backs in the Big Ten in Jonah Coleman. You have one of the best wide receivers in the Big Ten in Denzel Boston. You have a really good secondary. I mean, Ephesians Pryzok's a really good cornerback. You supplement him with Takario Davis, who was with Jed Fish at Arizona. He's a unit at cornerback, so you have one of the better Big Ten cornerback tandems. The issue is you could not stop the run last year, and if you don't get that figured out, you're kind of up the creek without a paddle because everyone in the Big Ten runs the ball well. And if you can't stop the run, you're kind of limiting your ceiling with that. So if they figure that out, they could be a really pesky, fun team to watch this year. I mean, they're going to be a fun team to watch this year anyway. I think that offense is going to be dynamite, but that's my pick as far as who are we looking at here who could, I mean, and even if it's not make legitimate playoff noise, like you look at some of the teams that they have on this schedule, they can, potentially ruin somebody's playoff hopes for sure, given who they get at home.
Absolutely. I mean, Washington is my pick as well, and to not rehash everything Ryan did, my keys here that could be the downfall for them, and it's already starting to use them in a big online dynasty that we're doing in College Football 26, is their O-line and D-line. You got to protect Damon Williams. The one benefit you get is he's mobile, and he's athletic. He can create plays, and Fish did a great job with him. I think back to the Michigan game last year where they got him involved more, and he made some key plays with his legs for them, extending plays. But the D-line, Ryan hit it on the head. If you can't stop the run, what's the best way to control a road environment? When you're on the outside of hitting like a bomb big play, I'm just going to punch you in the mouth repeatedly and just slowly kill your crowd, and you have nothing. And that's Oregon and Ohio State are going to look to walk in there and do that. And Oregon, by end of season, if you haven't shown the ability to stop the run, they're just coming right down your throat the entire time. Like that, it's just, you're not going to be able to handle them. But again, they're not dealing with the loss of a Michael Penix Jr. this year, 3 stud wide receivers. They've had some continuity of the O-line and D-line now. They brought in, I'm blanking on the young man's name, but a massive body from Utah to stuff the middle. And that's going to bring some beef in there. But I certainly think, man, Washington could be the one that crashes some parties this year. Could be a lot of fun. I hope it's not Ohio State week 4 or week 5. I don't want it, but
that goes back to your point about after the bye week, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Watch out, it's all coming together. And then they host Illinois as well. They could ruin their season. They host Oregon. It's very interesting. And you look at the road schedule, it's not bad. Like you do go at Maryland in October. So it's in October at least, not September. At Michigan, it's going to be tough. That one's going to be pretty rough. And then obviously Wisconsin we don't know what Wisconsin's mindset, we'll get to that in a moment, but we don't know what Wisconsin's mindset's going to be at that point. Obviously that could be a pretty tricky game, but still the road schedule isn't as bad as what you faced last year, at least.
Yep. Cutting on the mileage, a fun caveat I have there. Interaction with this, and I don't remember their name, and I wouldn't call them out here anyways, but this lovely Washington fan, when we were talking about miles traveled, and that could again be a tricky spot for Washington this year, they said, it won't be an issue. They used to travel to Arizona. I'm like, when did the mileage of Washington to Arizona become Washington to Piscataway, New Jersey? Like, it's not even close.
Clinton, it's practically the same thing.
Like, my gosh, that is 3 different time zones versus what? Are you in the same one still out there?
I don't know.
Depending
what
on the time of
does
year.
These days. Yeah,
Like,
depending on the time of year, it might be the same. It might be one.
Yeah, I'm
different.
like, my goodness, like, it's a little bit different. Again, hopefully they've adapted to that and can adjust a little better on the fly this year for themselves.
I must have missed that one
absolutely.
because I would have. I don't know how
I
I took our Twitter off my phone because if
I
had
did
to
not
deal with
reply.
that- if I had to deal with that on a daily basis, I'd probably shoot myself in the head.
Yeah. Listen, I have learned, and this is a piece that I took from both Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman, is Ari talked about on their show about how he engages pretty much constantly with anybody who brings brash comments and things like that to him. Andy's like, man, once we make the post, if it's not worth your time, you don't even need to mess with it. And that's kind of where I'm at now. Like, you get people on here and they've got these asinine comments, and I'm like, it's not worth the 5-10 minutes of me to respond for you then to just give another ignorant comment that has nothing to back it with. I'm not even engaging with this. If we want to have intelligent conversations, I'd be more than happy to engage with you. But if it's just going to be dumb, I'll leave it. I'll let other people yell at you, and I'm just moving. That's kind of the path I have taken for 95% of the time. And Ryan, I'm sure you're going to get a lot of love here in a second for all the USC fans who listen to this once you get to give your spiel to Justin about USC.
All right.
Why are you making me do this? I don't know that there's a team in the Big Ten that has a wider gap between their ceiling and their floor than USC. Because if they don't start 4-0, they should just fire Lincoln Riley. Like if you lose to Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue, or Michigan State, you're not a serious football program. Please pack it up and leave. The funny thing about USC this year is there's a very realistic chance that they start 4-0 and then lose 4 consecutive games, because then they have at Illinois, bye week, Michigan, at Notre Dame, bye week, at Nebraska. What is the collective tenor of the USC fan base going to be if they start 4-0 and then lose 4 straight games to the 4, I guess, depending on how you feel about Oregon, the 2nd through 6th toughest games on their schedule? That would be unfortunate for USC fans, I suppose. I don't know what to make of this team, because on the one hand, I agree with people who were saying that they were better than their 7-5 regular season record last year. They were leading almost every single one of those games except the Notre Dame game, I think, in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, if you can make an argument that if they close a little bit better, oh, wow, they're a team that's in the playoff discussion. But if you keep losing in the fourth quarter over and over and over again, that is, how do you say, a trend? And that speaks to something about either the culture of your program, the conditioning of your program, or all of the above. And if they have not fixed that, then how is this year going to be any different? I don't know.
Here is my, and that you led right into me there. This is why USC cannot close out these games. It's simply because they cannot or will not run the ball.
Truth.
That is their issue. I hinted that with the Oklahoma take earlier, and that's the problem. Like they continue to try to throw the ball all the time, and you get to the end of these games and you're not controlling the end of the game. You are losing control of the game, and even if you have the lead, you end up either putting your defense in the field too much or putting yourself in position to turn the ball over. And we see these other teams come back and they end up losing games they had no business losing. Like the Maryland game. They had no business losing that game. They saw, I think they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory against Michigan. And you can count down all the several other games. And I think it's starting to come to a head, especially in the Big Ten, in a conference where your opponents are running the ball to salt the game away, and you're not doing that. So really, it all comes down to, for USC, like they're a fun preseason team to talk about. I can see people on the hype train. I'll pass up on the ticket. You guys can go ahead. I'll sit this one out. But you can see, they're a fun team to talk about because they got the quarterback. Lincoln always produces good quarterbacks. They have the fun receivers everywhere. But that's the ultimate issue. And it's going to take an entire philosophy change for Lincoln Riley for this USC team to turn it around, or we are going to see the same episode again. I've known people that worked with him. He's a good person. I really hope that he does that. but he really needs to take a deep internal look into what's going on at the end of these games in order to change what's going on there. It's not, the defense got blamed for a little bit. Maybe this is the year they learn that, but we'll have to see.
Well, they definitely took a step forward defensively last year, and I think they will take another one this year because I like Danton Lynn, or however you pronounce his first name. He's a good defensive coordinator, and he made a lot out of a defense that was bad. That's truly bad the year before he got there. So I think that unit can take a step forward this year. But I mean, you talk about the running game; they had good running backs last year. Woody Marks was fantastic. Quentin Joyner was really good, and they have neither of those guys this year. And they're starting running back, allegedly, or the guy who's projected to start. Yeah, from New Mexico, New Mexico State.
I think he's from the FCS. I think he's lower than that.
And I mean, that's not to disparage the FCS players, because I mean, we just watched Cam Scatteraboo come from Sacramento State and dominate the playoffs.
Cam Ward, incarnate world.
I mean, Cam Ward also took a couple of years to become what he did, because he was 2 years at Wazoo before Miami. But that's a big jump, and it's just such a weird stylistic fit with USC and the Big Ten, and I think people called it out at the time because you have this Lincoln Riley offense, which is just this quintessential Big 12 offense. Run and gun, spread the field out. Who cares if you're playing defense, because no one's playing defense anyway? Well, now you're in a league where everyone plays defense, and if they stop you once or twice, you're in trouble, because they're going to melt the clock on you and go on a 6.5-minute touchdown drive because you can't stop. Well, who was Michigan's starting running back last year?
Khalil Mullings.
Khalil Mullings. Okay, I couldn't.
Yeah.
80-yard run, right?
I always confuse Khalil Mullings and the other one, the big one, who scored 4 touchdowns against Ohio State in 2022. Why can't I remember his name?
I'm not entertaining that right now.
Oh, and then
Hassan Haskins.
Yes, Haskins. I always confuse those two. I always confuse those two. I don't know why. I literally had Khalil Mullings on the tongue, and I was like, what?
Funny thing is, I was thinking about the guy who was the fast one that got the 2 touchdowns to open the game against Washington in the national championship.
Donovan Edwards.
Yeah.
Donovan Edwards, he enjoys riding in the backseat so much. That's why he was always the backseat rider in the Michigan offensive running backs. He showed up when the lights turned bright, but any other time, the dude was just a backseat driver.
Boy, we got off topic there in a hurry.
Well, it's important. It's relative to USC. For my pitch on USC, Ryan, I think we're both there. I'll believe it when I see it. We said it last year. And USC fans, man, and if you engage not in the proper way with their fan bases on you like a fly on poo, like Lincoln Riley has proven nothing to me really in 3 years at USC other than, can he get it done? You had Caleb Williams for 2 of those years, and you didn't make the playoffs. Now, I get it. The 1 year he blew his hamstring against Utah, and that helped get Utah to the win. But what did they lose to? They lost to Utah, which is a physical team. A team that would fit in the Big Ten. And I believe Kyle Whittingham got him multiple times. It's a team that USC couldn't get over. Well, guess what you're doing every week now? You're playing Utahs every week. And if you can't get past that, how's your offense going to work? The other problem is, you guys mentioned the improvements on defense. What didn't improve? Tackling. They still weren't good tackling last year. We talked about this with Mark Culkin when we had him on for our spring previews. I don't have the number anymore, but it's an egregious amount of missed tackles. You want to add to why you can't finish a game? You can't run the ball? Well, when you can't stop your opponent because you can't tackle, you're not going to get the chance to get that vaunted offense on the field. And Jaden Maeva, Justin, I made a bold prediction whenever we did our show in June. I said Maeva wouldn't be starting by the time USC plays Notre Dame. I think it's Husan Longstreet's going to be the starter. If you look at his stats just briefly last year, started 4 games, threw 6 picks. That's not an I know he had 11 touchdowns, but 6 picks in 4 starts, that's pretty rough, man. And I know you got to arguably, again, USC fans, here they are in the Twitter sphere, best wide receiver duo in the Big Ten, Lemon and Lane, which it might be. I'm not.
Let's not go that.
But I think that's a big jump when you see the other
Clinton,
talent.
did you just say they might be? Your team, you could just throw Jeremiah Smith out there, and it's the best wide receiver duo.
Yeah.
Fair. Listen, Ryan, I'm trying to control the homerism. I don't want to be the Ohio State guy.
I will remove it for you. Their wide receiver duo is not better than Ohio State's.
Not even close. Smith and Tate together, it's not even close. You could substitute Ohio State's 4th best receiver in there with Smith, and it's not going to top him. But there's just still a lot for me to see. This is not my take. This was a take off of Inside the Pylon. Good Lord. The Solid Verbal and a combo episode with Josh Pate. They were doing the Take-A-Toa. One of the fans sent in, and the dad said, wouldn't it be something if Lincoln Riley gets fired from USC and then reverberates back?
He didn't say gets fired from. He said leaves USC.
Leaves USC, but then ends up back at Oklahoma. But here's my caveat. Would he even do it? Lincoln Riley doesn't want tough conferences. He left Oklahoma because he knew they were going to the SEC, and he thought he was getting a camp in the Pac-12 where he'd pillage people. And then he's like, oh, shit, I actually got to go to the Big Ten a year later, and now I'm in trouble. And it hasn't panned out for him so far. Again, I don't want to hate on him. Football's better when USC's good. It's hard to argue against that.
No, I will argue against that.
Well, you're the Notre Dame guy, but we'll have to. It's a wait and see for me. I'll believe it when I see it with them.
Yeah. I mean, again, like that's not an easy thing to look at yourself in the mirror and change your philosophy. That I think is what we need to see in order for USC to have a good year. Otherwise, I think we're going to see the same thing repeat itself. I mean, sorry, this will be the last point on that. Like, you even look at what happened in the Big 12. Like, he won a lot of games there because the other teams were throwing the ball all the time, too. They were doing the same thing.
Yep.
But you see the teams that gave him the hardest time, Iowa State and Kansas State, the exact same thing again, where those are teams that focus on running the ball. Late in his time there, Baylor started running the ball more with Dave Aranda. Like, you end up with the same episode again, where teams are just, you run the ball to beat USC, and I think the Big Ten knows that better than anybody.
Is there something to, as great as Lincoln Riley is, and there's no doubt about the quarterbacks he's put in the NFL, is there just something to when you run a chaos-based offense for your quarterback? Look at the quarterbacks, Baker, Kyler, Jalen Hurts, Caleb Williams. They excelled with chaos and getting out of the pocket and moving. Is there just something to that when you get to play against actual teams who play defense? It just doesn't work. I mean, I'm sure Baker put up big stats with Georgia, but they didn't win the game. Was it Kyler Murray's team that walked in and just got boat raced in the playoff? Oklahoma, I believe. And maybe there's something to it that we need to pay more close attention to.
Well, that was Jalen Hurts' team against Joe Burrow.
Okay.
But yeah, there probably is something to that because it's a little bit overwhelming for a defense. You see them jump off to those early starts, but then when you're later in the game, you need to have more schematic plays and you need to be able to kind of use up some clock and control the game. You see them lose control of the game.
Absolutely.
Let's go to Minnesota to stop piling on USC. I like this team a lot. What are your thoughts on that?
Ryan, I'm going to take this one first.
Go for it.
I'm kind of in between. I love our guy, Ryan Burns. He got us juice for Minnesota last year. He got us juice for Minnesota again this year. The Minnesota people that we've interacted with, Drake Lindsey seems like he is everything and anything they could ever want in the quarterback that they've needed for years. He's a first-time starter. His top wide receiver, Daniel Jackson, is gone. They have to replace it. Again, it's some portal. It's some guys that have been there, but things that aren't overly proven. You need O-line help. You've just lost one to the NFL this year. You lost Phillip Daniels to Ohio State, who was going to be a projected starter most likely, and the tackle for Minnesota. The one thing that they seem to hold on to offensively is the fact that you have Darius Taylor, who's an absolute stud, one of the best in the Big Ten, and then his comrade, A.J. Turner, to form a top duo. And that's great for a young quarterback to lean on. I look at the defense. Outside of Coy Parrish, who was an absolute stud as a freshman, who Ryan and we can say called that one coming, you're getting another defensive coordinator. Danny Collins, I believe if I have the name correct there, is now the DC again. After your most recent one just went to Miami, correct?
Yes.
So you have to facilitate that again. And again, they probably keep the scheme somewhat similar. We just talked about this with Tony Gerdeman, this on our past fall preview with Ohio State. Is like they're not going to reinvent the wheel with what worked from last year that got them a natty. They'll facilitate some new stuff in, but they'll have a base there. So it's just I want to believe in Minnesota, and I want to be in the fan club, but then I feel like you're just going to look back and it's 8-4 again. And again, that's not a bad thing. PJ Fleck is super consistent at 8-4. What was his best year? 10-2 maybe. I think they dropped the last one of the year with Wisconsin. He's successful. He's a great coach, but can he get you, to speak of, out of this tier instead of being a sleeper or a chaos team? Can he ever get you to? Can he crash the playoff team? And maybe Drake Lindsey's the one, but you got to have pieces around him to do it. No one believes me. I still question the fact that if Minnesota's not where they need to be this year, I know Coy Parrish is a hometown guy. Money talks, man. Money talks. I'm not sold that he'll stay at Minnesota for one more year. If he's got a chance like a Bama, a Georgia, Ohio State call, and you get a chance to win a natty, it's hard to talk when you can get the money and get the natty and get to the NFL draft because you get a year of that team. I don't know.
It's hard to tell. I think Minnesota at least can sell their draft productivity. Like they have put guys in the NFL over and over again. You can point to Antoine Winfield Jr. He's doing big things for the Buccaneers and go, hey, stick around. How about you?
Absolutely.
And it's not like Minnesota's hurting for money. I'm actually surprised like they don't continue to keep recruiting better just because Minneapolis is a pretty good market. But you look at one thing there and lots of pieces to come together. We've seen in the last few years, they kind of drop that early game that's like, oh, what's going on? So, like, which one do you think could be that game if that were to happen? Would that be Buffalo or Cal?
Boy.
I think it's Buffalo.
Yeah, I like Buffalo heading into this year. I think they're a good sleeper MAC team. Weird Thursday night game.
Opener. They struggled mightily with North Carolina in the opener last year to the T that they lost the game because they couldn't get the offense going.
Yep. And I mean, Cal stinks. They're not going to be good this year. They lost the entire offense in the portal.
Talk about being pillaged.
Yeah, that's just and that's you're starting a true freshman redshirt freshman quarterback, and he certainly seems to have plenty of talent, and I think he could potentially be a ceiling elevating player for Minnesota. If not in 2025, then definitely in 2026. And Clinton, I could not vehemently disagree with your Coy Parrish take anymore because their defensive coordinator is their safeties coach who recruited them, who's been there forever, who's been the guy who's been putting people into the NFL. He's not leaving. It's not going to happen.
Listen, our guy last year, Dub swore up and down Dylan Thieneman would not leave Purdue. And
okay, but Purdue was a train wreck.
They are.
And they fired their coach.
But in this crazy world, man, I just feel like you can never say never.
No, you can never say never. I mean, no, I don't. You don't deal in absolutes, but I would be floored.
I hope he doesn't. I love the fact that he's there.
Unless Danny Collins leaves. Then, I mean, I guess all bets are off. But
that'd be another poor hit for this team.
Yeah, just keep. You're now the defensive coordinator pipeline for all the top 25 teams. I don't think they'll lose to Buffalo, but if you told me, I'm looking at my crystal ball, and they do lose to Buffalo, I wouldn't be like floored just because maybe redshirt. Jesus Christ, true redshirt freshman. I don't know why that's so hard for me to figure that one out. Redshirt freshman quarterback throws a couple of ill-advised interceptions. I mean, I love the running game. I think the O-line will be fine. Who steps up for Daniel Jackson? That's going to be a big question mark.
Huge.
Their defense should still be really good. I don't know if it'll be top 10 in the country in total defense good, but I mean, Kerry Brown at safety, also a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Smith in the middle, big human being. So they have the pieces to be good. How do they replace some of the guys that they lost will be a big key. I do agree with Clinton, though. I think they maybe put a scare into a team like in Iowa or in Nebraska or in Ohio State or in Oregon, probably maybe win one of those games, but I don't know that this is more than an 8-4 team again.
Yeah, I look at that Nebraska game at home. I think maybe they could get that one, but the Ohio State, Iowa, Oregon, all are on the road. It's hard to like that. Absolutely. So that gets us to our very special tier here, which is, I leave the guy need to pull it up, but I'll pull it up anyways.
Nonsense. Hello,
Badgers, man.
I mean,
it's bad. It's not a good schedule. This is the schedule that you make in your dynasty mode when you're like
a MAC team trying to make the playoff.
No, when you're 15 years into your dynasty and your team is 99 overall and you're just bored of beating the snot out of whatever MAC team gets auto-populated your schedule. Like, I'm just going to schedule the entire top 25. That is what Wisconsin.
That's what this is
this year.
Just everyone, like, you might be playing almost all of the top 7 teams, except for Penn State. That's like the only one you avoid.
Totally, they can't even discount Miami, Ohio, week
No.
1. Daquan
No.
Finn.
Yeah.
Daquan Finn is back. Miami is a contender in the MAC every year. I don't know enough about Middle Tennessee State. I'm not that well educated on them. But at Bama, brutal. Maryland, I expect that's a win. At Michigan, I mean, in theory, I think Wisconsin has the ability to be in the tier of they could cause some chaos. I'm not saying the playoff, but they could cause chaos by beating people. But at Michigan's tough. You do get Iowa at home. Ohio State's at home. I've seen good Ohio State teams walk into Wisconsin and lose. I've also seen them go in and kill them. You got to go out west to Oregon. You get Washington home. Indiana, Illinois, at Minnesota. It's, my goodness, Luke Fickell can't catch a break. And this could be hit. We talk about how good his coaching job was getting Cincinnati to playoff. Would this be his best coaching job ever if he wins 6-7 games on this schedule?
Can I say something controversial?
Yeah.
Are we sure Luke Fickell's a good head coach?
Ooh, you're hitting at the heart. You're hitting at the heart of this podcast because we're based in Cincinnati.
Look at his Cincinnati staff from like building up. Not the one that they went to the playoff with when they already had all their good players. But Mike Mickens found Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant, recruited them, developed them, went to bat for them. He's now doing the same thing at Notre Dame, turning Ben Morrison from a low 4-star recruit into what would have been a first-round pick if he wasn't hurt. Leonard Moore was a 3-star cornerback from Round Rock, Texas, who's now arguably the best cornerback in college football. You had your defensive coordinator, Marcus Freeman, who just went to a national title game as a head coach. Your offensive coordinator was Mike Denbrock, who coached Jaden Daniels to a Heisman Trophy and then turned Riley Leonard into the most prolific rushing quarterback in the history of Notre Dame football. That is an insane stat because they used to not throw the football at all. He was more prolific than past Notre Dame rushing quarterbacks who ran the football and won Heisman trophies in the 50s. That's insane. Mike Brown was the wide receivers coach. His last year at Wisconsin, Will Pauling had 80 catches and almost 900 yards. Now he's at Notre Dame, turning Jaden Greathouse into a really good wide receiver.
Also having Will Pauling back.
Brian Mason was a special teams coordinator who was insane his 1 year at Notre Dame, is now the special teams coordinator for the Colts. He had an insane staff with him, and they are now almost exclusively at Notre Dame doing the same thing, except for him, and he is getting his ass kicked at Wisconsin.
My pushback on is he an actually good coach is it's the scenario you're in. Look, Wisconsin lived in a world of the Big Ten West for so many years where average was the top of the Big Ten West and got you to the Big Ten championship. I'm not saying those teams they're better than average, but you could be average and get there. I mean, my God, Northwestern made it. Purdue made it. I'm not knocking these teams, but if you're talking about who's coming out of the West versus what used to be in the East, Wisconsin didn't live in that world. It was much easier for them. They don't get that luxury anymore. Plus, you have the addition of Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA. It's a much tougher road to get where they used to be. Wisconsin fans are used to going back-to-back years, maybe miss a year, go back. Fickell doesn't get that luxury now. He also took a big swing and miss trying to complete the dairy raid offense. That was an epic fail. Wisconsin is meant to be ground and pound and pass secondary. That's what you need to do. Now, the question mark is, Billy Edwards put up some nice stats for Maryland last year, but it was on a bad team, and you had Ty Felton, who was one of the best receivers in college football last year. They need him to stay healthy. I've mentioned this multiple times. If Wisconsin had a quarterback last year, they beat one, if not both, of Penn State and Oregon. They were a quarterback away. Death, taxes, and Braden Locke throwing a pick at a bad time was a given last year. In the Oregon and Penn State game, both times. They should have had them. They had them both at home and should have won it. They have no quarterback luck. Billy Edwards, man, like you're looking at a season-ending injury by week 2 if you come transfer to Wisconsin. Like, oh my goodness. So they also need better defense. Wisconsin, their calling card was run game and defense forever since I grew up. They've got to utilize that to at least try to get to 6 wins, man. You got to survive to get to Bama and be respectable in the Bama game. I do not expect them to win it. Could they? Sure. We don't know what Bama's going to be. They're getting a lot of hype again because they're Bama. But if they get smothered down in Tuscaloosa, you're traveling back and you kind of got to settle in with that. I don't know, man. This could be another long headache for Fickell. But I push back a little on, is he a good coach or not? The Ohio State scenario was horrible for him. He got stuck in a tough spot, and you accepted a tough spot at Wisconsin, especially with the change now that there's no divisions.
Okay,
Yeah,
but do you...
The defense is what worries me. It's like that they were, even when things were falling apart under Paul Chryst, like the defense was still at least solid until his last year. But they aren't improving in that area. I remember watching the early part of the Alabama game, and once their defense is getting torched, it's like, all right, I can move on from this game. I can move on from Wisconsin as a team. If they're not playing good defense, they're toast. I mean, what are we even doing here? And I thought that would be the first area that Fickell would improve them, and that has not happened.
Do we want to talk about the teams Wisconsin actually beat last year?
Not great.
They beat an FCS team, a MAC team, not USC, Purdue, who might as well have been an FCS team, Rutgers, who was fine, and Northwestern, who also might as well have been a MAC team.
And then even those felt like dogfights, pulling teeth. They didn't dismantle Western Michigan.
No, Western Michigan had momentum in that game. Like, they were getting set to take it over. A turnover, I can't remember exactly what happened, but I think Western Michigan had momentum, and then I think they muffed the punt.
Yeah, it was on a punt. Yeah. Yep.
And then Wisconsin took off with that one. I mean, South Dakota, they even blow them out either. That was a 2-score game.
27-13.
Yeah.
Here's not where I'm at with Wisconsin this year. They better start 3-1, or else I think pitchforks might start to be coming out, because, I mean, you can write the Bama game off. I think that's perfectly fine. You're at Bryant-Denny. That's a very difficult place to win, even in the best of circumstances. This is clearly not the best of circumstances for Wisconsin, but if you drop an additional game to Miami, University, Middle Tennessee, or Maryland, you're not... You have no chance of making a bowl game, because
you lose that opener to, and that's the hard part, because this is a tough Miami team. Yep. You lose that opener to them, and you still have Alabama, Ohio State coming up, Oregon. Like, oh no,
it kills any sort of vibes or momentum for your season, because at least if you even if you get smoked by Alabama again, I think everyone. I don't want to speak for Wisconsin fans, but I at least would look at that and be like, okay, that's understandable, but. If you rebound, you beat Maryland, then you get a bye to kind of regroup a little bit. Then you have 8 Big Ten games left. You have to win 3 of at Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, at Oregon, Washington, at Indiana, Illinois, at Minnesota, which is still going to be a tall task to do. But if they at least look competitive against Alabama, they look good against Maryland, then, I mean, maybe you could squint and see, all right, well, maybe in that month of October, maybe they get if they can get one of Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon, then you got to finish 2-2 against Washington, Indiana, Illinois, and Minnesota, which, I mean, tough,
feasible,
but it's doable. But if you lose to if they lose if they start 2-2, I'm not paying attention to this team this year. They're just
that's it. I mean,
they're going to finish 2-10.
And the hard part is, I mean, this could maybe even transition us to our next section. That's Maryland. That's not just Maryland. You're playing them in September. I know the joke kind of died last year when they lost to Michigan State. That was one where I was like, oh no, this is going to be a bad year for Maryland when they lost to Michigan State in September.
Yeah.
Let's try to be optimistic with this bowl tier, because I think people have been punching these teams all off season long. So when you look at this tier, who is the first team that sticks out to you as one that could maybe end up having a better year than expected?
UCLA. They are intriguing to me, and not from the standpoint of that we had Mike Regalado on, was it last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, and he was very high, saying ceiling maybe 8 wins. I don't know if I'm there. That's a bit bold for me. Nico gives this team a lot of confidence, but if you dive into Nico's stats last year, when he played the premier teams, he wasn't great. However, their schedule features 9 potential bowl teams, 3 from the playoff last year. Thereby, it could fit them in both schedules of the stout schedule or that schedule, and then could result really badly for them. Or they win 6 to 8 games and have a profound effect on all the seasons, being in the chaos category. UCLA intrigues me the most. They finished the season really well last year. However, the problem is they pretty much have an entirely new team. and new staff. So all that momentum you had, in a sense, kind of left. It's still with the program, but the players specifically and the staff specifically, it's kind of a reset. So UCLA intrigues me the most out of there.
Yeah, I'm with you on UCLA. I don't know what to make of them because in theory, the Nico edition does feel like a significant step up at the quarterback position from what they had last year. But like you said, and I think we talked about it in the way back in the yesteryear machine when we were previewing the playoff game last year, his stats against in SEC play were not good. He was very much stat padding against the weak portions of that Tennessee schedule. So with that UCLA schedule, there's going to be tougher defenses this year. So how does he compete against those teams? But again, I mean, you beat Utah to start the season. You should start 3-0. You should start 4-0. I guess you throw Northwestern in there too. But I'll shout out Michigan State because I was high on Aiden Childs last year and got kind of burnt by that. I think he got better as the year went along, at least better at taking care of the ball. And when you have a athletic, potentially dominant quarterback with a athletic, potentially dominant wide receiver, that's a pretty good place to start. You have a good tight end too in Jack Felling. Hopefully the offensive line's a little bit better. Hopefully the defense is a little bit better for them this year. But it's a team that should start 3-0, I guess, depending on how you feel about Boston College. And if you're 3-0 heading to LA on September 20th, then maybe you got a little bit of confidence. And I mean, if Aiden Childs is playing well, I think he is an X factor who can make a lot of pretty good teams crazy this year.
I also like that it feels like they have 5 pretty nice winnable home games. Now, the rest of the schedule is a different story, but at least you have those 5 games.
Yes.
Big thing for them is health this year. Defensively, they were plagued by injuries last year. That certainly does not help when you're bringing in a new staff, breaking essentially a first-time starting quarterback, a young stud wide receiver in Nick Marsh. So if they can keep health on the defensive side of the ball, that's going to help Childs a ton because he was pretty turnover prone last year. As Ryan said, he got better as the year went on. But if that just doesn't fully leave him right away, if you can at least lean on your defense to get something back for you, I think that can get you to 6 wins this year for them.
Yeah, I could see it. And I think they have an easier path to 6 wins than UCLA, for example, because
Agreed.
I especially look at UCLA and I kind of the counterpoint to what you were saying earlier. You have that Utah game where you're probably going to get bullied in the trenches in that one. How do they handle that? And then you have that game go wrong. Like the rest of the schedule just looks really tough for UCLA.
For sure.
I look at Northwestern. I don't know if we can get them to a bowl just because of the schedule, but I look at this team and I actually like some of the pieces they added.
Mm-hmm. Preston Stone being one. I mean, you always have the caveat, and he got benched for SMU last year, but if you go back to 2023 Preston Stone, he was fantastic. I know Ryan and I were known for making fun of the mistake by the lake last year a ton. That was kind of our most talked about Northwestern thing. We talked more about the stadium than we did the team. But, I think they could. I mean, if Preston Stone gets back, and again, probably not going to have the weapons he had, but if he can get back to what he had in 2023 for his own sake, then maybe they push. Wisconsin under Fitzgerald used to ride that wave of like 2 bad seasons. Woo!
Wisconsin?
Big Ten. I said Wisconsin. Northwestern, sorry. You go 2 or 3 bad seasons, then woo, there they go, back to the Big Ten championship. And just have success or bite people numerous times. I remember one year they bit Wisconsin pretty good. And it just kind of depends. I don't really know where I'm at with Northwestern. I honestly think, and we'll get to them in a second, I think I might like what Purdue brings more than Northwestern.
Ooh.
Okay.
Can we talk about the fact that Big Noon is at the this Lakeside Stadium for a noon game against Oregon? Like,
that's
unreal. Big Ten, we've lost the script on this one, guys.
Absolutely.
What are we doing
with
this one?
11 a.m. local kickoff.
I wonder if they're doing that only because this is the last year of the Stadium by the Lake. They get their stadium next year, their new stadium. So maybe they're trying to make something of it. Maybe they're just very desperate the week of September 13th.
I don't know that the inventory for the Big Ten is particularly great on September 13th.
Yeah. I don't know. I look at the schedule early, man. Tulane's a key game early for them. You got to have it. You're on the road. You'll get Western Illinois. Goodness, I hope, for the Big Ten's sake. Oregon
Western
coming
Illinois was riding like a
bad.
20-something game losing streak at the FCS level last year. You better win that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Louisiana Monroe should be a dub for you, but you got to go to Penn State. A toss up with Purdue. We'll see.
Clinton, do you want to know what your other options for that week 3 would have been?
What is that?
Villanova, Penn State, Houston Christian, Nebraska, Towson, Maryland, Central Michigan, Michigan, USC, Purdue, Norfolk, Rutgers, Michigan State, Youngstown State. I should have gone to Ohio State. Oh, it's already on Peacock. Sorry.
Villanova, Penn State, man. That's what it should have been all day.
There you go.
Wow. What a slate.
That's not a good slate. That's the if you have to do something on a fall Saturday, that's probably a Saturday to do it.
Absolutely.
So Purdue. I mean, it can't get any worse.
Mm-hmm.
It can always get worse.
I don't know, man. That was pretty bad last year.
I don't know how you can appropriately analyze a team that has like 85 new players.
Yep. That's the positive for me to them is that maybe they can start fresh. Hope springs eternal, right? That's kind of the key thing. So maybe Barry Odom can get something started. He just came off UNLV's best record ever. They were fighting for 11 wins was pretty good, right?
Yeah, that was one of their best seasons of all time.
Okay.
And you look at what he did there, he kind of did a similar thing where he kind of reinvented them straight from the start and found immediate success. Now, unfortunately I would have been very excited to see the go-go offense in Purdue, but did not bring his offensive coordinator with, so we'll see him try to succeed in a different way. But you're right. Hope springs eternal. Maybe at least the expectations are low. If you can try to start 2-0, and by the way, 2-0 is not a given. Ball State in-state team, they're going to have that game circled on the season opener. 2 massive offensive tackles at Ball State. If you've not looked at them, you guys might talk about that later this week. It's ridiculous how big their offensive tackles are. Southern Illinois is top 20 in FCS, so that's not even a given. But if you could start 2-0, maybe you keep your hex going against Illinois, get an upset there, maybe take down Rutgers. 4 wins even feels good for Purdue.
I agree with you.
I agree on that.
So we have Maryland and Rutgers left. Who do we want to look at? What is a reason for optimism for Maryland after a year like last year where they lost in September and things just...
You have a good freshman local kid who should be playing their starting quarterback this year. That's kind of all I've got. It's literally all I wrote in my notes. Malik Washington is all there is to be excited about.
Yeah, I had during our own tier rankings, I had Maryland as the lowest and below Purdue and Northwestern. Malik Washington is my lone bright spot, and I think Mike Locksley is very much on the hot seat for this year if he can't put it together and get him to a bowl game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need September Maryland to come in big here. If you can start 4-0, then we might be looking at an entirely different situation here.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking optimistic. You got Washington then traveling across the country. Who knows what could happen there? That's where you can at least carve out a path to a bowl game. I mean, a bowl game may literally need a 5-0 start, but even then, that's not guaranteed. I mean, Northern Illinois in week 2 is going to be a game that's going to decide a lot here. If you lose that one, then oh boy.
Possibly lose to NIU in week 2.
Oh, well, I guess it worked for the last guys. Maybe Maryland should lose that one.
That is your path to prosperity, Maryland. Lose to NIU, and you will play for a national title.
That would be something, Matt.
That would be so amazing for this sport. And then we close this out. At least talk about team by team with Rutgers.
This is just a team that I expected to kind of take a little bit of a step last year. And that was more of a schedule thing than anything else. We really like Kyle Monangai heading into last year, and he had a fantastic season. But that string of 4 straight losses in the middle of the season where they just did not look particularly great just left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. And I kind of feel like with Rutgers, if you weren't going to take the step forward and win 8-9 games last year with what you had back and how the schedule played out, like, are you going to do it at all? Or are you just kind of like this perpetual, sometimes we're a bowl team, sometimes we're not a bowl team? I don't know. I mean, they might as well join the MAC with how they start the season with the 2 MAC. They're playing for the MAC championship quite literally to start the season with Ohio and Miami their first 2 weeks. So as much of data as you can get by playing G5 teams, I think we'll get a fair amount of data given that that's probably going to be 2 of the better teams in the MAC. But if you're a Rutgers fan, I think you would hope that you start the season 3-0 and then kind of go from there. But this is certainly not the same schedule that they had last year. And I mean, you're looking at, you start Big Ten play with Iowa, you're at Minnesota, you have to play Oregon, you have to play at Ohio State, you have to play Penn State, you have to play at Illinois. I mean, I look at this Big Ten schedule and I feel like with Rutgers, their absolute ceiling best case scenario is 8-4, and even that might be pushing it.
And we felt like a scenario last year was 9 wins for them.
I thought they were
right
on
9
last year.
Again, injuries on the defense doesn't help, but you don't have reliable Kyle Monangai. Listen, I'm not an Ethan Kaliak-Manis truther. I don't buy him. I don't know if he's ever been good enough as a passer. It's great to see Rutgers have the ability to pass more, but I don't know if I buy enough of him to be able to get them to an 8, maybe if 8's their ceiling, 7-8 win season. And I'm telling you right now, week 1, Bobcats, the defending MAC champs, are taking down the Rutgers Scarlet Knights in Piscataway. I've called it. I'm sticking to my guns. When Ryan and we did our for our first year, we kept track of all of our pick'ems and our picks, whatever, which I won by a landslide.
It was not a landslide. It was kind of close.
It was a small avalanche. I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm taking OU in that game, and I'm sure they're going to be gifted double-digit points in that game. So I think Parker Navarro and the Ohio Bobcats, if you guys are listening to this, come join us on Wednesday night for our show where we have the MSC podcast on to talk some action. But I think the Bobcats are going to snag them. But for Rutgers, again, Monangai was everything for me last year. Shianu, I believe, is a pretty defensive-oriented guy, so they'll play respectable defense. But it's, again, a Rutgers offense. I need something more than Kaliak-Manis, in my opinion, especially looking at this schedule after the first 3 games.
Yeah, and you're looking at a situation where you're not going to separate from Ohio or Miami because Ohio and Miami are looking to run the ball, control the clock a little bit, and Rutgers is doing the exact same thing. So you're putting yourself right in the danger zone there with those 2 teams.
Absolutely.
And you talk about a bit of an improved passing game last year. You do get Ian Strong back out wide, a good receiver, but you do not get Dymere Miller back, who was their leading receiver. He's on the
better receiver. Yep.
So that's another big loss in addition to Monangai.
Some great portal additions from James Madison and from OU on defense. Blank on their 2 names, but the 2 gentlemen combined
O'Neal and Weaver.
Perfect.
Are the 2 guys.
Those 2 combined had more sacks, just the 2 of them, than Rutgers did as a team last year. That's how rough it was. I think they had 21, 22 total team sacks, one of the lowest teams in the Big Ten. So if you're not generating pressure on the opposing quarterback, they're just going to sit there and drop dimes on you all day long. All day long.
I do wonder about the running game, too. I know, when we talked with Brian last year, I think he was pretty high on Sam Brown, who I believe is back this
year. If he
year.
can stay healthy, right?
Yes, and then
he was one of the health factors.
Right, and then Antoine Raymond as well, who was their second leading rusher last year. Clinton, I guarantee you will not be able to guess where this man is from.
Antoine Raymond?
Yes.
Like what, state, or what do you mean where he's from?
Where's he from? Where's he from?
Hawaii.
Montreal.
No, Canada.
Canadian.
Okay, well.
Québécois.
Bringing a little CFL to the NCAA.
Not just Canadian, Québécois.
Maybe you should have stayed with hockey.
Well, I mean,
Oh man.
you never know.
Well, before we get to hockey, let's go ahead and let's put our final predictions on the table. Big Ten championship. Who is making it and who wins?
Clinton, you go first. I don't want to do this right now. I need to think.
I think it's Ohio State Penn State rematch, and I think Ohio State beats them both times. But I do not think Ohio State is undefeated. I think Ohio State's going to potentially lose week 1 to Texas, have at least 1 loss, maybe 2. But I think Ohio State wins the Big Ten championship, and Ryan Day can get that monkey off his back again, even though he's already had one.
Oh my God.
He has as many national championships as Big Ten championships.
That's
now, right?
insane.
That's right. Yeah, pretty crazy, right? It's also crazy to say you won an Addy in the year you didn't win your conference championship. It still feels weird to me.
The old school side of me does kind of wants to throw up a little bit at that thought, but
like every ounce of me wants to say like Ohio State Indiana matchup we didn't get regular season. That'd be really cool. I just, as much as I want to believe in the Hoosiers, if they're 10-2, but then Penn State, Ohio State are 11-1 each, then you're not getting in. Like you just need more. Like missing Ohio State, you need to get. I feel like Oregon and Penn State, and then you're in there, obviously, if you don't trip up. But I just don't know if I'm ready to put Indiana there yet. I think that'd be fun. I've backed further off Illinois. I just don't know who else you put there. It would be great to say Oregon, but since we all kind of put them in our bottom 3 of the top tier, could they do it? Yes. Will they? I don't know. I think an Ohio State-Oregon Big Ten matchup would be fun. But for now, I'm going top 2, Ohio State, Penn State.
I'm going to say that we're going to have a Penn State-Oregon rematch.
Okay.
And Penn State gets them this time. Because, you look at, let's be realistic about Oregon's schedule here. I mean, playing in the whiteout game is going to be a very difficult game to win. No bones about it. Say what you want about James Franklin. That's one of, if not the best home field advantage in college football. If Oregon then, after their bye, is able to get through Indiana, they finish with Rutgers, Wisconsin, at Iowa, Minnesota, USC, at Washington. Again, not the easiest schedule, but if you can get your stuff together in that middle third there, then I think the end becomes a little bit more palatable for you. So if you're Penn State and you do win that Oregon game, I mean, you basically just have to make sure you beat Indiana, because even if you lose to Ohio State, you're still making the Big Ten title game at 11-1, because you'll have the tiebreaker over Oregon. I don't know how to check the math on this to figure out what the tiebreaker is going to be, but we're just going to go with an Oregon-Penn State rematch with Penn State taking it.
I've got Ohio State versus Penn State. I think Ohio State wins the first one, but Penn State wins the rematch to win the Big Ten championship.
Would be fun.
All right. Yeah. That'd be spicy.
Now,
absolutely.
Playoff picks. How many Big Ten teams are making it and who's making it?
Oh, boy. I'm going to go 4 again.
I think 4.
Honestly, I'm kind of tempted to say the same 4 as last year, guys. I don't know. I mean, if we're saying Penn State, Oregon in the Big Ten title game, those are 2 playoff teams. Even if Ohio State loses to Penn State and Texas, they're still a playoff team, in my opinion.
Well,
maybe.
I guess the math there, if they lose to Texas, Ohio State would need to lose the second game in order to not make the Big Ten title.
Oh my gosh,
so you're probably looking at an upset loss to. You're probably looking at an upset loss to Washington. Maybe they get Texas. Maybe they get Texas
All right,
in the opener.
Here we go.
That's at home.
All right. I'm going to go off the wall here because now I'm actually thinking about the logistics of my prediction out loud, and I think it would require Ohio State to go 9-3. So I'm going to say Ohio State doesn't make it. I'm going to say Penn State, Oregon, Indiana, and Washington.
Oh, all right.
Which again,
I like it.
Don't ask me to fact check the logistics on that, because if Oregon's playing for the Big Ten title, that means they probably beat Washington. So I don't actually know who else Washington plays to. Yeah, okay, or Washington beats Ohio State. Okay, yeah, you know what? That's my pick. Screw you, Clinton. Your Buckeyes aren't going to the playoff this year.
It's just not going to happen. It's Ohio State, it's Oregon, it's Penn State. Of the top 3, I would say most likely Oregon is the one to not make it. Get my 4th team in there. I actually think I'm starting to drink the Indiana Kool-Aid again, even though it's a tough one. I think if they're 10-2, I think they're in. I just don't know. I backed off Illinois. I'd love to see Washington be the 5th team, but actually, you know what? I don't know how the math works out, but I think you could squeeze a 5th one being Iowa if we're in enough on Gronowski there. I think it could be. I think Washington gets close. I think they're a sleeper for a reason, but I think they're like an 8-4, 9-3.
Clinton,
and
the
they can't
issue
get
with
there.
that is Iowa plays 3 of the teams you also have in the playoff.
That's fair. I told you I didn't know how the math would work.
There's a lot of logistics on this that I did not think about ahead of time.
It's a rotating bundle of crap.
Yeah,
this is all going to work out, and they're going to
That's
get
on
in.
me. That's on me.
I'm going to go with 4, guys. I'm going to go with Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, and Iowa crashing the college football playoff at 10-2.
I love it.
Listen, in 3 years when we have auto bids and 8-4 Iowa is playing for a spot in the Big Ten title game, it's the 6th seed. It doesn't matter. Sorry, I just had to lob a grenade in there at the end.
Yeah, certainly.
It's a bad idea.
Well,
I don't support it at all.
And then finally, you know what? I'll throw one last question to you guys. Just while we're all tired, I think we're all on the East Coast here, but just throw one more in here. The Penn State all-in year is successful. Do they win the national championship?
No.
Yeah, I'm with Clinton. I'm going to say no.
I don't know if I'm even taking them to the semifinal.
It's just
it would depend how it shakes out.
No, yeah, I think this is just with the straight seeding now. I think we have this preliminary idea on how the playoff looks, and it's going to be entirely different this year. And I don't know that there's going to be quite the favorable path that they got last year available to anyone. But I don't know what that path looks like. I'm just going to go off the cuff and say I'm going to say no, but reserve the right to change my mind until I see what Drew Aller does as a quarterback this year.
I'm all in on them, boys. Right now, if I had to pick a champion, I'm going Penn State. I think just a similar path to what Michigan and Ohio State did the last 2 years. A lot of seniors coming back for their revenge tour. We're going to get it done. That's what I'm buying with Penn State. I'm buying in this year, guys.
I think if Ohio State can't have it, obviously being a fan, I think it'd be cool to see the Big Ten go 3 straight. That would quiet the SEC talk down just a little bit more.
Clinton, no, it would not.
I know, it would probably ramp it up even worse.
They'll it's always a different argument. It's always a different argument.
Media days in 2026 will be disgusting.
Oh.
We better have some good shows ready for that week.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mentioning that, I guess you guys can go ahead. How about you plug your socials? Where can the people find you?
All right. You can find us on everything: YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Not Facebook. We're not on Facebook. Don't go on Facebook. All of those.
No boomer market.
Yeah, we're not. We're not in the boomer market. Maybe that's our market insufficiency, Clinton. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if the boomers know what podcasts are. You can find us at ITPCFB on all of those platforms. Twitter is probably the best one-stop shop because we'll tweet out all the links there. You can subscribe to that YouTube channel. We would love to have your subscription. That's, again, at ITPCFB. If you would like to listen to us in podcast form, we are wherever you get your shows, Apple, Spotify, the whole 9 yards there. Search for Inside the Pylon, a Midwest college football podcast. You can find us there. Follow the show, subscribe to the show, whatever the nomenclature is for that. So that way, whenever we drop an episode, it will come right to your phone, so you'll never miss it. But once the regular season-ish starts, week 0, leading up to week 0 starts, we'll be 3 times a week. We usually go live on YouTube Sunday night. Are we doing Sunday night this year, or are we going to do Saturday night?
I think we were aiming Saturday nights to do like the live recap. So Saturday night, Monday night, and Thursday night for our live pick'em show.
Well, that'll work good for the first week because I'm not talking to you during the Notre Dame game on Sunday night. So, there you go. Saturday night at some point after the games are over or the West Coast games are starting, we'll go live there. But then Monday night, 9 Eastern, and Thursday night, 9 Eastern is when you can find us as well.
Awesome.
Clinton, anything you want to add?
No. Hope you guys, thank you to Justin and Updog Sports for having us on. Any of you guys who listen to them, we'd love to have you check us out even periodically. We have a lot of fun with our in-season. Ryan just beefed up our intro sound, and we'll have some cool segments and sounds for you for the upcoming season for the pick'em shows, our random Monday shows, and our reaction shows on Saturday nights.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Absolutely. You guys make college football fun. Thanks for joining us for Big Ten football. And again, we are Updog Sports Talk. You can find us on all those social media platforms. Pretty much all the same ones that Ryan mentioned. Plus, we are available for the Boomer Market on Facebook as well. So congratulations to the Boomers on that one. My colleague usually does the outro, so I'm going to keep it short in this case. Yeah, be sure to tune in. We have more conference predictions coming your way. For that, have a good one, everyone.
You guys.